Hi, welcome to Off Script. I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Today on the show, we are covering Mean Girls. It's out. I'm convinced it was supposed to come out during the holiday, but it came out January 12th. We've seen it. We're excited to talk about it. We're also talking about the Zone of Interest. We caught a screening here in town. One theater had it. We have got to talk about this movie. This movie is insanely cool. Please stick around for the review. We're talking about the Oscar Noms. 2024 is out. We have nominees to discuss, hot takes, snubs, highlights. We got it all, but before we get to everything, a ton of news this week, just like last week, Andy. A ton of news, and we're going to start at the top with the big one. Top Gun 3 is in the works at Paramount. I don't believe it. I think nobody's really surprised by this, right? Everybody knows Top Gun Maverick was huge. It saved cinema. It single-handedly brought movies back from COVID. And now Tom Cruise is swinging by again. There's a new script coming from Paramount. They're saying original director Joe Kosinski's going to come back, or Maverick director Joe Kosinski. Glenn Powell was talking about it in an interview. All but confirmed, right, Andy? Everything but name.
Yeah, there was no way they were not going to make a third Top Gun movie after easily clearing $1 billion in a movie that I said would flop. One of the few not accurate predictions of from off script, but
we don't talk about this. We don't talk about this.
It was a huge hit, and we're in the business of sequels and safe picks, and another Top Gun film, if it is as exciting as the previous one, would be another big hit.
$1.5 billion. That's how much money Top Gun Maverick made around the world. Steven Spielberg was the one who said that Tom Cruise saved the theater business following coronavirus. That's where that came from. But one thing's for sure, Top Gun made a big impact. One thing that didn't make so much of an impact, which was a big surprise next summer, was Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Or as it's going to be known now, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, as it's listed on Paramount Plus. Apparently they're just going to drop Part 1 in the title, citing, they didn't say poor box office returns, but I mean, it's the answer, right? Why are we not going to call it Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, Andy?
Well, because these were supposed to come out in like a twin summer thing. Like Dead Reckoning came out this past summer, 2023, and then this part 2 was supposed to come out in 2024. It's going to be delayed by at least a year, possibly longer. And so by then, people will have kind of forgotten. And Hollywood has this thing where they don't like to really use numbers for sequels anymore, because people feel like they have to see all the previous films, and so they just give it a different name that we can just go right into it. So it will be a sequel in practice, but it'll have some new fancy Mission Impossible name.
What if this is what the entity wanted, Andy? What if the entity didn't want it to be Part 1? Now it's been renamed.
Ethan.
What if this is all new? Yeah. Some Redditors said it.
Movie.
Dude, I know. Ethan. Some Redditors said it great. They said, and Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 will forever become the Mission Impossible movie with the big bike jump and train stunt. And I love these movies, but I do end up feeling a lot that way, like the Fast and Furious movies, that like I start to just remember them by like the big stunt that's advertised in the commercials for it, and that's what was advertised for this one. They're doing the bike jump and there's some train stuff, and that's what I'm gonna remember it for mostly. Hopefully, wherever the series goes next, they pivot into something a little bit, I don't know, stronger or tighter, especially if it's supposed to be concluding. Is that what this next one's supposed to be? Mission Impossible 8 is going to be like the cap? I mean, where are we at, Andy?
I mean, it'll be the end of this saga of it. I don't know. The Mission Impossible series kind of goes in sets. Like 1 and 2 are kind of a set. 3 is actually kind of on its own, but like 4, 5, and 6 have kind of all been a set as well, and then 6, 7, 8. There's overlap there with Rebecca Ferguson's character, but that you can kind of group them, and so this is definitely going to be, I think, the end of a grouping of these movies. You might see some turnover of these actors. I mean, Ving Rhames has been in the series as long as Tom Cruise has, 30 years, and Simon Pegg's now been in it 20 odd years. You got to pass the torch.
When Ving Rhames passes away, God forbid, tragedy strikes, years
he'll
from
still be
now,
wearing
right?
his hat.
The memorial photo at the Oscars will be him in the Mission Impossible movies. I swear to God. Like he's going to be in these for the rest of his life, and good for him. He's getting the bag. One studio that's also getting the bag is Universal, because they're making a new Jurassic World movie. Hey, didn't you know it? Of course they're going to make more. Barely 1,000 days from the previous Jurassic World film that was supposed to be kind of the end of it, right? We've got a new script coming from David Koepp, who penned Steven Spielberg's original Jurassic Park and its 1997 sequel. Even though it is reportedly going to be a Jurassic World feature. I don't... Andy, who wants more Jurassic Park? Who cares, right?
I mean, they seem to be still very successful. They're crowd pleasers. They play well internationally. But David Koepp wrote his last writing credit is Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny. So that's a huge flop. So I don't know how he's still getting work, because that's not working anymore. He also wrote the previous Indiana Jones film, Crystal Skull, and the original 1996 Mission Impossible. So he does have some writing clout, but he also has bombed recently. So I'm not sure that's why you would go with. But I mean, people turn out for these movies, and if they're just going to keep making them, people love dinosaurs.
That's weird. Hollywood Reporter doesn't have a list of David Koepp's blunders here. I don't see this, but you're right. People are just going to keep making them. Obviously, we've got new Planet of the Apes coming, which is also Universal, right? Like, is that? Do I have that wrong? I don't know who does Planet of the Apes, but there's a whole new trilogy coming from there. Big CGI, right? Like, clearly there's an audience for it, and like Andy said, internationally they do great. Why not? Right? Why not keep making more? I guess like my little itty bitty. If I could make one request for the writers of the new Jurassic World, whatever, go with like a big reboot. Don't try to continue where they're at now. There's no more dinosaurs on islands. You know what I mean? Now it's just dinosaurs everywhere. And like, I don't know, man. Are we making dinosaur everywhere movies now? Like, I think the bottle thing works. I think dinosaurs in a specific place works, but I don't know. Maybe they'll come up with some clever something. Speaking of another big pivot from a studio, David Gordon Green is departing from the new Exorcist sequel. I found this story late one evening and texted it to you in our little hiatus, and have been laughing a little bit about it ever since, because David Gordon Green, if anybody who's paying attention to the old Exorcist or the last Exorcist movie knows, he was kind of supposed to be like the ringleader for this new trilogy that Universal bought for $400 million. Like, they bought the rights to make 3 Exorcist movies. He made this new one, The Exorcist 4 Double Trouble, or whatever it's called, and it bombed, and nobody even saw it, and now he's backing out, and he's leaving Universal in a lurch. Oh, it's great. What do you think about this, Andy?
I mean, that movie was bad, and it was a bomb. Exorcist believer, and they got to figure out some way to make money on this, because David Gordon Green is just not it. IP horror is just having a real tough time. Scream franchises on the ropes. Exorcist on the ropes. I mean, there hasn't really been a good Exorcist film since the original. It's hard to do the possession thing, and that original film was about so much more than just the exorcism scenes that people kind of miss. So I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know how you move forward. I don't know how you make this story scary again. But I guess it's not with David Gordon Green.
I think the head of Universal needs to book, or like Universal Creative, I guess, needs to book a good lunch with like the head of Spyglass and get together and put their heads together between Scream and Exorcist, how you bail yourself out of a horror series that you can't seem to get right in a time of Blumhouse Pictures is making insane money on horror. Like, horror is having a huge, huge pop at the box office. The funny thing is, like, it almost seems like the cheaper you can make these movies, the further you can run on them, right? Like, some of these really small features, like A24's Talk to Me, had a ton of runaway success. Blumhouse obviously like exists because of the runaway success of many small horror features. Like, I don't know if spending big in these things is the answer. It hasn't necessarily stopped them from working in the past, but Exorcist has got to go somewhere else creatively. Yeah, it's like, you guys can't keep doing this. People just aren't turning out for it. I think we've seen The Nun, and we've seen the exorcism of Emily Rose, and God knows what else. And it's like, we're so far now from where audiences were when The Exorcist came out that, like, even the old trailer nods in the new trailers for Exorcist Believer with like the black flashes, right? So like, nobody even got that. It didn't even make sense culturally. Like, I don't know. I think Exorcist needs to go in some new direction. Any other thoughts on this one, Nate? I know we got a couple more stories, but I've been blowing through them.
No, I'm ready to go.
28 Years Later is getting a sequel. Yeah, the Danny Boyle movies, 28 Days Later and 28 Years Later, about the rage virus zombies taking over the Earth. First one stars Cillian Murphy. Second one stars The Bourne Ultimatum. Jeremy Renner. That's it. Yeah, they're making more of them. Danny Boyle and Alex Garland are getting together. Original writer-director duo, right? Well, I should take it back. Danny was the director and Alex was the writer, but now Alex Garland is writing and directing his own features like Annihilation and Men and Civil War coming out soon. Danny Boyle did Trainspotting 2, right? And he's been working on some other stuff. Here we are. It's time, I guess. Cillian Murphy's popping off. What do you have you seen these movies, Andy? And are you a fan of them? What do you know about 28 Years series?
I remember when 28 Days Later came out. I saw it in. I don't think I saw it in theater, but there was so much buzz about it, and I saw it, and it's incredible. It was the first time we kind of had these fast zombies that ran. It was real, kind of gonzo, like in your face, a lot of violence. I remember they have this famous shot of Cillian Murphy on an empty street where you can see Big Ben. They had to clear out. They got permits to evacuate the area. And it just was so grounded and so real, and it was really successful. I don't think I ever saw the sequel 28 Weeks Later, but it is exciting for them to come back to this 28 years later. Some 20 odd years after that original movie came out, with the same creative team. They could have something. It could cook.
Yeah, why not, right? Like, a lot of us were skeptical about New Mad Max and Fury Road dropped, and it was like, oh my God, like the original creator back at the wheel, like can turn out something really incredible after years away. Like, I don't know. I do think for keen listeners of Oppenheimer buzz, I remember there was some. I could swear I've been able to find it since, but if you saw this, like, drop a comment and let me know. Like, I swear there was some TikTok interview or something on a red carpet with Cillian Murphy talking about Oppenheimer, and somebody was like, "Hey, I really like those 28 Days Later movies. Would you do another one?" And he was like, yeah, maybe. I don't know." And I'm convinced that clip got to somebody somewhere at a studio, and they were like, "Get the script writers, like, just get everything together. We might be able to get the guy who's getting an Oscar nom for Oppenheimer together for a 28 Days Later movie." But like, I don't know where these kids come from. I do love those old movies. I like both of them, even the second one, which is not as, I think, well known because it didn't have Murphy in it. It was like a spin-off kind of, different characters, but like still really good. Yeah, man, might be great. One more story before we move into Mean Girls. From the box office, Mean Girls does pretty okay, I guess, right? But it seems like a lot of people got froze up by the weather. How are the numbers this week, Andy?
Mean Girls is back on top 2 weekends in a row, domestically and at 51 million, a little bit higher than that globally. Really good start for the kind of mid-budget musical. Also, another big kind of surprise success is Jason Statham's The Beekeeper. It's made about 60 million globally. It's a surprise, the Statham still hits. Wonka continues to do really good numbers, made over it's over the $500 million mark. And I think one of the bigger surprise of the last couple of months is the rom-com Anyone But You, starring Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell, has topped $100 million. The rom-com is back. It's the highest grossing rom-com since like 2016 with Bridget Jones's third, her kid or whatever the third Bridget Jones movie is. So really,
Jones's life crisis, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's it's nice to see a very diverse pack of films still doing really well. The newcomer was the sci-fi movie ISS, International Space Station, which totally crashed to Earth, quote unquote. We just made a little over $3 million. It's like a $30 million movie. It's bad. It's a bomb, but a lot of positives for all the other movies in the top 10.
Love a good cheesy entertainment pop culture headline, right? ISS crashes to Earth and box office failure. I think the Anyone But You story is really interesting. Anytime one of these rom-coms does well, I find myself like oddly interested in what's going on because it's such a rare thing to see like word of mouth help carry a feature over time. Like, especially nowadays, usually something pops right at the start and then has pretty quick drop off, especially like bigger features like Marvel stuff will have really fast drop off after the first week or two. Like even some larger things like Barbie will see it, you know, a pretty significant drop down. But when certain rom-coms like that Sandra Bullock Lost City, right after COVID and Anyone But You. Yeah. Like both of these had like actual carry for a while. And I have a theory that it's because all the moms in America who would be getting out and seeing these features, they just don't hear about them until other moms tell them a couple weeks into release. And they're like, oh yeah, I'll go see that. Or I'll go plan a date with my daughter and we're going to, it's my hot take. I realize saying it out loud on the podcast, I probably shouldn't be pinning it all on women. Obviously, it's not just about that. But I do think, I don't know. I'm glad it's doing well, I guess. Our man Glenn Powell is going to be in Top Gun 3. Probably. Reportedly. Maybe. As reported on Off Script Film Review. Anyway, we should move into our first review of the episode because really we got to get to our second review of the episode because I'm so stoked to talk about Zone of Interest. Please hang out for Zone of Interest. Dude, Zone of Interest is so cool. But before we get to that, we got to talk about our first movie of the episode. I'm going to be taking the summary on this, so please excuse my clumsy delivery. The movie is Mean Girls. So, I am a good pick, I think, to cover the Mean Girls plot here at the beginning of the review because I never saw the old one, right? I never saw the Lindsay Lohan one. Everybody's got that pop culture movie that they've seen a million times and like quoted with their friends and seen memes about. I just didn't get around to this one, right? It's okay. It's fine. But Mean Girls, this film, is the musical adaptation of the Broadway adaptation of the movie that I think is based on a book from there. I know Tina Fey is involved in writing. I know this film is brought to us by a dynamic husband-wife directing duo. And I know that this film stars a new cast of characters, right, who are having this adventure. The film is about Cady Heron, who is a newcomer at school. She's from Australia and she's moved to America and she used to be homeschooled, but now she has to fit in at a public school where she doesn't know anybody, and she discovers all of these cliques, the artists and the weird kids, right, and the stoners, and then of course there's the plastics, right, these preppy girls who are glitzy and glamorous, don't talk to anybody, and are super mean, and they're led by Regina George, played by Renee Rapp, who is like the most dynamic, the most vivacious, the cruelest of all of them. And slowly, as Cady begins to integrate into the plastics, she discovers that Regina really needs to get hers. All right, it's past due. Everybody at the school knows she's terrible. Somebody needs to get some revenge on Regina George. So slowly, as her and her friends plot to unravel the life of one of our mean girls, she begins to realize that she herself starts to slip into the role of being kind of bad and kind of glitzy, and suddenly has to discover who she is while Regina George is just getting burned for being a bad person. Like I said, have not seen the old one. I'm interested to see what Andy thinks because he has. Andy, what did you think of Mean Girls musical adaptation?
So I think this has a similar problem to The Color Purple in that it's been adapted 4 times. This has gone the same route of first it was a novel, then it was a film, then it was a musical, and now it's a film musical. And so it's a little bit of a victim of its own derivation. I think it's a lot of fun, and the production is spot on. Like the song and dance numbers are really impressive. Like that's where a lot of the good filmmaking, choreography is done well, but the music is just, it's a little lame. It's not catching. You're not going to walk out singing the Mean Girls theme. So, and it also, it lacks the humor of it's funny, but it's not near as funny as the original. It's missing a lot of that clever nature. The other thing, it's a little bit like these Disney remakes where, because you know exactly what's coming, and because it's beat for beat, it's hard to get into it because you already know exactly what to expect. There's some things that are updated a little bit, but it's largely the exact same story. I think the production of it is really well, but it falls short, I think, of the original.
Yeah, I think you nailed it right on the head. It's an adaptation of an adaptation. It kind of has the same problem The Color Purple had last week. Like The Color Purple we watched is the film adaptation of the Broadway play of the Spielberg film that was based on a book. I think this fundamentally has the same journey of creativity to get to where we're at now. And all the sharpness has been shaved off. It's got this layer of like glaze and polish that softens it up for audiences everywhere, right? Men and women who can afford Broadway play tickets, and then also the rest of us commoners in our vaudeville theaters. And it just ends up feeling really like, I don't know, like it lacks a certain pizzazz. Now, I think you're right. Like that does come out in the way it's shot, the way it's made. Directing duo Samantha, Jayne, and Arturo Perez Jr. do not have a lot under their belt. They have a pretty slim IMDb page. It's a lot of shorts before this, but they're married. They work together. They directed this. I don't know if they are friends with Tina Fey, who got the writing credit on this, even though she didn't write the original book. She wrote the screenplay for this. And I assume she had a hand in writing the Broadway. But I don't know how they landed this, but they do a pretty good job, all things considered. Like the music's pretty good. Lots of good long one-take shots, like with lots of choreography, a ton of background dancers, big set design where they can get it. That stuff's good. It really, I think if I struggled anywhere, it was kind of the stuff between the songs. It wasn't even so much like the music where half of it wasn't toe tapping. And there is a lot of music and about half of it isn't that good. The plot was a little messy, and I think it's because it's not quite as sharp as that original movie was. From what I've talked to people, it just seems like, I don't know. Did you get that at all? Like, how are our characters compared to Lindsay Lohan and God, yeah.
Yeah, they're a little bit of a shadow. I saw one complaint that the movie's not mean enough. Like that's part of the humor, is that like these girls are really mean, and they're really cleverly mean, but it's the exact same names and the same plot. Andrew Rice plays Cady Heron, who was the character played by Lindsay Lohan. Renee Rapp plays Regina George, who was played by, oh gosh, I can't think of her name now. Rachel McAdams.
I was doing the same thing earlier. I was like, what? Rachel McAdams. Yeah.
Yeah, and her performance is so good. And actually, the other plastics are better than Renee Rapp. And I don't think that she's a bad actress. I think her part is just not written very strongly, despite her being like the lead plastic. The other two are actually way more funny. Avantika as Karen Shetty and BB Wood as Gretchen Wieners. I don't know which one is the acting name and which one is the character name almost. It's just not as clever. It's not as funny. It's not as mean, which is part of where the heart of the movie comes from, because it's about kind of some friendship betrayal. And, those same lessons are there about like, pretending to be yourself to be accepted and the cost of that, and kind of loving yourself in the end. So we still have those same kind of themes. I think a big standout is the kind of outcast characters are also in this, played by, Moana herself, Alihi Carvalho,
Tough name.
who sings a lot. Like she's I don't know if she's on Broadway, but she has like a Broadway star voice, and they give her a lot of songs because she's so good. She's definitely a highlight. Yeah, it's a shadow of the original, and it's fine, and they do a good job, but it's just not near as funny.
Well, it's funny. Our two queer side characters are kind of our muses. They open and close the feature with this number about it being a cautionary tale, and then at the end, well, now you've seen what happens when you're a mean girl, whatever. Ali Carvalho and Jaquel Spivey probably play Janice and Damien, and I realized probably during Janice's last big song and dance number, when she's like belting her heart out, I was like, I would rather be watching the movie about this odd lesbian artist and her friend than Cady and Regina George. And like, it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah.
Like Andrea Rice's Cady is understated for sure. She reminded me a lot of like Elsie Fisher in Bo Burnham's 8th Grade, like blonde and like keeps her hair down and like kind of has like the hollowed out eyes, look like she's tired a little bit. And then over the course of the movie, she gets the glow up, right? Like she gets the sick makeup and the better phone, and she starts failing math, right? Like I get that and that all works for sure. Renee Rapp, on the other side of that fence, she's like after the movie, I was talking to Christine about it. She's like the principal Ed Rooney in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Like, she starts high and then just gets run down over the whole movie. And I've never seen the original, and apparently that's fundamentally how it works. Like, these two characters kind of shift places, and they have this odd kind of foil about them. I totally get that. But yeah, Renee Rapp just ends up really getting beat down and shut out here, and she doesn't have a lot of time to be mean. You're right. Like, she's kind of soft a little bit, in the same way that I felt about Mr. The character from The Color Purple. He's the villain, and he's soft gloves a little bit. Like, he's bad, but he's presented in a way that's like almost like a Disney villain. Like, you're charismatic, and you've got some qualities
Family
about
bad.
you that, yeah, people can enjoy. That you can watch you for 90 minutes. And you're absolutely right. Like, her two side plastics, Karen and Gretchen, both way better. And the two side muses, both way better. The new kid, by the way, the new heartthrob, Christopher Briney, plays Aaron Samuels. Cool eyes, doesn't do a lot of acting. I will probably see him as an intern in something in the future, or something, some young up and comer part. I don't know. Maybe he'll be a Marvel hero at some point. Yeah, like I feel like I liked it fine. I just couldn't help but walk away thinking, does the original do it better? Because like for everything that's lacking here, I can't help but think like the original was memed. The original has like pop culture status, right? A number of stars in the original have gone on to do incredible work. Like, I don't know if any of that's here. I don't know if this quite gets over that line. What do you think, Andy? You've seen it.
Yeah, like it. That's part of what is so funny about that original is, they have the same burn book stuff, but there's mean things happening along the way, and it's like you said, it's like this is an attempt of like, well, we want to poke fun at people, but we don't really want to upset anyone, and so we're going to kind of pull it back, and that's not why that first movie works. That first movie works because you're genuinely scared of this group of girls, and everyone wants to be accepted by them so that they are not made targets. And it's a little soft. It's a little kid glove, like you said.
And let me tell you, like, as somebody who hasn't seen it, I've heard this as a hot take from the people I've talked about it with. If your mean girls aren't mean in the first half of the movie, it makes Cady getting revenge on Regina George look worse. It makes her look meaner. Because it's like, halfway through the movie, I was like, dude, Renee Rapp is getting a lot less screen time. And when she is here, she's just kind of a victim. Like, because that's what happens in the plot, right? She's super mean, and then people start to get revenge on her. And this movie doesn't give you enough time for that. They just tell you she's real bad with a song and dance number. And then you get to watch her get pushed down a hill for 90 minutes. And that's the movie. Like, weird takeaway. But like I said, I think it's just because it's an adaptation of an adaptation, and like ultimately that's going to come with problems. And I think it's a big claim throwing Tina Fey's name on it. Her name was all over the trailers. She opens the movie with a message: "Hi, I'm Tina Fey. Thanks for coming to Mean Girls." Right? Like, enjoy the movie. Like, and then I actually looked at it, it was like, oh, she didn't even direct it. She wrote it, and she wrote an adaptation of an adaptation. So they didn't bother putting the director's names on here. They didn't bother. It just
she
plays
wrote
a whole
the original.
lot.
That's why. That's why her
she
name's
wrote
all over it.
The original movie,
right?
But it is based on a book, which she didn't write.
Yes, right.
All right.
Correct.
So yeah,
but she wrote that original movie, and it was a big hit, and it's a classic, and that's why they threw her name all over this.
Yes, it's for sure.
She's the writer for this too. I don't know. I don't know what happened in the last 20 years.
I couldn't tell you. Yeah,
Liz Lemon gone
definitely
soft.
Changed. She's in it too. Maybe I don't know. I hear she's
in the original. Like, so yeah. She's in the original, and as is Tim Meadows' character, and they're playing their same character. She's a teacher, and he's the principal. Like they. So it's a weird thing because it's a remake, but they're playing their same characters 20 years later.
Well, this also explains, because this film was produced by Faye and Lorne Michaels, right, head of SNL, and I was confused by Tim Meadows being in here because I was like, he's SNL and big sketch comedy alum, right, and Tina Fey's in here. Okay, they must be good friends. And then when I saw his name at the end, I was like, is this an SNL feature? Like, why are they all on here? And then if they're in the original, that makes more sense. Lorne probably had a hand in financing the film. That kind of comes through. Okay. All right. It's just boy, yeah, it's like I got to do. I don't know. It's not that I have to do the homework. I'm just fascinated at how Color Purple felt fresh and different, but ultimately like cinematically a little flat. This movie, on the other hand, I feel like it takes advantage of the medium and film, but the script's a little flat, and it's like neither of them split the difference. So far, my favorite holiday musical has been Wonka. But by a nose though, because Color Purple's super good. Anyway, we should get to recommendations. Boy, we got a lot of show to move on to. We got to get to Oscar noms. We got to get to the zone of interest. Any other thoughts on this one for recommendations, Andy?
Just real quick, John Hamm barely shows up in this, and he is in that trailer a lot. Like I like he all his scenes are basically in the trailer, and that is a crime.
I thought that when I was watching the movie, and I realized towards the end he wasn't going to be in it anymore, and I was like, did they shoot more with him and then just lose it? Like it wasn't going to work? Or did they just have him on set for like a half day? Here, wear some goofy pants.
Half hour.
8 lines. Yeah, like he was barely on. Like, dude, it's a bummer. I think maybe there's more deleted scenes of him being a goofy. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, yes, not enough John Hamm, certainly. An odd adaptation. Andy, would you recommend Mean Girls?
I would if you're a fan of the property. If you've seen the original, loved the original, had a good time, I think you'll have a good time with this. If you're a little on the fence, I would say maybe save it for streaming. I think it is really well produced and the performances are good. It's just the writing is a little weak, despite it being Tina Fey, the same person who wrote the original. The dance number, the song and dance numbers are done really well. Like a lot of choreography going into like this. Those sets must have been crazy. The music to the musical is just a little underwhelming. You don't come away singing the songs. I think overall it's a good time. It does go a little long, but again, you're better off going back and watching the original.
Yeah, I obviously haven't seen the original, so I can't say whether or not that would be worth your time. But what I can tell you is for what's here, Mean Girls is good. Like I said, of the 3 holiday musicals that I've seen, I wouldn't put this one at the top. It would take the bottom spot. It's new, it's from two directors who haven't really done any big features. Like, I get that. It's an adaptation of an adaptation. It comes from an odd space. And yeah, like I don't know if I saw anything in here that like I'm gonna see in a meme in 15 years. But like I've seen stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not gonna happen like in a JPEG for a decade now. Like I understand that there's staying power in like what's here, but I don't know. I think this is fine. I think it's fine. And I would bet when I go back and watch the original, I think I may get a little more out of it. But yeah, Mean Girls is all right. But now that we've got the popular review out of the way, now that we've got the review that's going to get people to click on the thumbnail out of the way, now we got to talk about the real film stuff, all right? This is for the people who really want to talk about movies. This is for the people who want to talk about bold cinema, big cinema. And we got to talk about the Oscars. Andy, what do we call this segment?
It's time for the death of cinema. So the 96th Oscar nominations are upon us. They were announced early this morning at 5:30 a.m. Pacific time. They're here. We're going to talk about them. We got surprises. We got snubs. We have a lot of people nominated that we thought would, and kind of everything in between. So it's a long list, so we're going to try and blow through these as quick as we can, starting with Best Picture. We have a full 10 nominees, of which I'm proud to have seen 9 of. I always do this very elitist thing where I try to see as many Best Picture noms and see how I stack up when they're announced. So here they are: American Fiction, Anatomy of a Fall, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Past Lives, Poor Things, and The Zone of Interest. Zach, what do you think of these 10?
You skipped Barbie in there, but yes.
Sorry, yes. Barbie. Oh, my God.
No. These are rock solid. These are all good picks. This is fundamentally what we kind of expected. I got to see American Fiction. I keep seeing it's good. Has it come out yet? Did we miss it? Maybe we just missed it.
It was released around Christmas.
I feel like briefly. I saw it at like a theater across the hall and was like, oh, American Fiction, I should go see that. And just like Zone of Interest, like I have not had the marketing coming to me to tell me when this movie's coming out to go see it. I need to go catch a screening. Otherwise, rock solid. My pick. No, are we doing picks? Or are we just hold on? Wait a second.
Well,
are we doing picks?
I mean, of this, of this list.
Yeah.
I don't. It's a great list. Maestro just doing too much work. I mean, the devil works hard, but Bradley Cooper works harder, getting a number of nominees. I think overall, it's important to point out Oppenheimer got 13 Oscar noms. Killers of the Flower Moon got 11. Poor
Yeah.
Things got 11, I think, also, or maybe it's the opposite. Flowers of the Moon got 8, I think. Barbie got 8. So a lot going around. Of this, my pick is probably going to be Oppenheimer.
I think it's Oppenheimer too, but I tell you, Holdovers have really come around on since I've seen it. I'd love for that one to sneak one out. But that got nominated a lot in here. I think there's a lot of love for the Holdovers. Best Directing. Nominees include Justine Triet for Anatomy of a Fall, Martin Scorsese for Killers of the Flower Moon, Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer, Yorgos Lanthimos for Poor Things, and Jonathan Glazer, The Zone of Interest. Andy, Zone of Interest has been in here twice already, and we didn't even see that till this week. And let me tell you, if I hadn't seen it, I would be thinking, wow, something must be going on here. That's really odd.
Yeah, big snub here. Greta Gerwig, nowhere to be found. Had one of the biggest film of the year. First woman to make $1 billion film, historic. Left off. And last year, no women were nominated for Best Directing. We did get Justine Triet in there. That's good, but I think Greta Gerwig deserved to be on this list. That said, it's a stacked list. You know, you'd be hard pressed to take someone off, but you could definitely do it.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. All I heard were stories about how great being on the Barbie set was. People were like, I couldn't wait to go to work. Everybody was super positive. Everything was fantastic. Like, Gerwig seemed to have made a really fantastic something and produced an incredible film on top of that. It's really a bummer she's not here. My favorite, probably Scorsese. Dude, I did like that Poor Things, though. I'm telling you, I like that Poor Things. Who would you pick? And then I think it's Best Actor.
I mean, I think it's going to be Nolan. I think it's going to be an Oppenheimer sweep this year. I think it might be his year for everything. Best
sweeper.
Actor in the leading role. Bradley Cooper for Maestro, Coleman Domingo for Rustin, Paul Giamatti in The Holdovers, Cillian Murphy in Oppenheimer, and Jeffrey Wright in American Fiction. Surprised to see Bradley Cooper on here, man. He's really begging for that Oscar. At this point, I'm just like, just give it to him so he'll stop. Jeffrey Wright also a little bit surprised to be on there. Big snub, no Leonardo DiCaprio for leading role for Killers of the Flower Moon.
Who was it? Was it Paul Schrader that said Leonardo DiCaprio plays dumb and nobody wants to watch Dumb for 3.5 hours? Like, brutal take.
Might be
and
right.
It's all I can think about looking at this list. Like, how is he not on there? But yeah, it is weird. It's Giamatti for Holdovers for me. If I could pick one, man. Like, really coming around on Holdovers. Best Actress in Leading Role. Wait. Yeah, my turn. Yes, my turn.
Yeah,
of course.
Go.
Best Actress in Leading Role: Annette Bening in Nyad, Lily Gladstone in Killers of the Flower Moon, Sandra Hüller in Anatomy of a Fall, Carey Mulligan in Maestro, and Emma Stone in Poor Things. Hoping for Emma Stone. I think it's too weird, but there's a lot of noms for Poor Things. Maybe not. Maybe it's not too weird.
Conventional wisdom says it's Lily Gladstone. It's the kind of the discovery Oscar, that, you know, discovery of talent. Again, another big snub here. No Margot Robbie for Barbie. Surprised that Annette Bening is here for Nyad. If you don't know what Nyad is, it's a swimming drama that's on Netflix. We might have to watch it now. No one has seen it. No one has been talking about it. But, you know, the Oscars, that I need to remind people, the Oscars, it's a dirty game. It's political. There's a campaign. There's money. There's a whole lot of ways to get in here. A lot of times it's just about being a name. So I think it's probably going to be Lily Gladstone, but it's a shame Margot Robbie isn't in this list.
Same, snubbed.
Best Actor in a Supporting Role: Sterling K. Brown for American Fiction, Robert De Niro, Killers of the Flower Moon, Robert Downey Jr. for Oppenheimer, Ryan Gosling for Barbie, and Mark Ruffalo for Poor Things. Really surprised to see De Niro on this list. No one's really talked about, like, his performance is great in that, but no one's really talked about it as being an awards contender. Again, the big kind of funny thing, Ryan Gosling gets nominated for Ken, but then the other, Margot Robbie, doesn't get it for Barbie. And then Mark Ruffalo, a little bit of a surprise over Willem Dafoe. I think this is going to Downey Jr. All the money's been on him.
Yeah, and he's really tremendous as Strauss in Oppenheimer. He's really great, man. Ken being on the list and not Barbie is tragically funny. Sorry, tragedy and comedy. You know how it goes. And like honestly, I love that Mark Ruffalo's on here. He's really fun to watch in Poor Things. He's delightfully icky and gross, and he's weird. And he's got a
Bella.
kooky accent. Yeah, like he is a ton of fun to watch as this awful guy. Like rock solid. I'd love it. Probably going to Downey Jr. Best Actress in Supporting: Emily Blunt for Oppenheimer, Danielle Brooks, The Color Purple, America Ferrera for Barbie, Jodie Foster for Nyad, and Divine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers. Worth mentioning, Danielle Brooks is really, really great in The Color Purple. She is easily one of the standout performances. Tremendous, moving. I still think it's going to Divine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers because she moved me just that much more, man. She's tremendous. She's the favorite. I think she's got it this year.
Yeah, agreed. Again, Jodie Foster randomly showing up for Nyad. That's this year's To Leslie, like from last year. Some other surprises that aren't on here: May December, neither Julianne Moore or Natalie Portman, as well as Celine Song's past Greta Lee for Past Lives. Another people thought she was overlooked as well. But this is a great list outside of Nyad. I just Netflix wanted a campaign, so it's that's how it is sometimes. Again, but the smart money's on Davine Joy Randolph. Moving on to, do you want to jump around or get into writing?
We can. I mean, do we really need to hit writing? I think we're okay to skip writing. Right? I mean, May December did catch a nod for original screenplay, but I mean, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, this is where Past Lives caught one for original screenplay. Barbie got in for adapted screenplay. Not Killers of the Flower Moon. Some people are upset about that. Another Zone of Interest for adapted screenplay. We're going to be talking about that later. Best Animated Feature: The Boy and the Heron, Elemental, Nimona, Robot Dreams, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. This is a mixed category. Disney gets the pity nomination for Elemental. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles could have been in here. Suzume could have been in here. I don't know anything about this Robot Dreams movie. Zach, have you heard of it?
I haven't, but I did watch a video this morning of like the very small team who put it together, like celebrating their Oscar nom, like and over video, right? And like that's always a delight to see in the animated category. There's usually a couple in here that are odd, like one that's like a straight to Netflix. This year there's a couple, right? A lot of people skipped Nimona on Netflix. We covered it here. You should totally check out the review. You should totally go check out Nimona. And I love that The Boy and the Heron makes the list. I think Spider-Man's taken it, even though again, love Boy and Heron. But I do want to make a special mention for Disney having their whole ass out on this list. Robert Iger just took a fat pay cut, and he should be going down the line at creative, putting heads on pikes. Elemental barely makes it on here. Elemental was a flop for the first 2 weeks. We covered it. Nobody was going to see this movie. Word of mouth and big international buzz that nobody expected got that movie over the finish line. That is the reason that's on that list. Disney missed it this year, dude. 2023 is a big miss for Disney. It just was. Like, they're barely represented here. Terrible. Anyway, I should do not documentary, but yeah, I should take the next one.
International film.
Io Capitano from Italy, Perfect Days from Japan, new Wim Wenders feature with the trailer in theaters now. Society of the Snow in Spain, now available on Netflix. Might be covering that soon on the podcast. The Teacher's Lounge in Germany, and then The Zone of Interest, Jonathan Glazer's film in the United Kingdom, which bafflingly is not from Germany, even though the whole film's in German. It's his first foreign language. It is the UK's feature. He is a UK director. So yes, don't get confused on your Oscar trivia list. It's going to Zone of Interest for me, man, of what I've seen here. And I should say, full discrepancy, I may or may not have taken a look at Society of the Snow. We'll talk about it soon, I promise. And I do want to see Perfect Days because I've seen the trailer and it looks real good.
I'm just going to read through these next couple of categories. Best cinematography, El Conde, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Poor Things. Great list. Best costume, Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, Poor Things. Napoleon's showing up. And then makeup and hairstyling, Golda, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Society of the Snow. So Maestro getting in there somehow.
Yeah, and hey,
any thoughts on those three?
Not particularly. I'm a little. Listen, I don't want to say I thought Saltburn was getting a cinematography nom. I don't want to say that, but Saltburn was one of the prettiest movies I've seen this year, despite the content. And I'm a little surprised it got nothing here. I don't know if it's a fat snub, but like Saltburn is a gorgeous looking movie. It's really surprising to not see it here. As far as costume design, it checks out. Big laugh in Napoleon. I don't know. Why wouldn't you laugh in Napoleon, right? That's the whole point. And then for makeup and hairstyling, I think, I don't know, it all checks out for me. I'm still surprised to see Barbie getting a nom in Best Original Song for I'm Just Ken. Like Ryan Gosling is going to go up on stage and accept that. I guess he wouldn't. He didn't technically write it, but I mean, I don't know. Like,
yeah, so the snub here is that Dua Lipa's Barbie song was like the hit of the summer, and that's nowhere to be found. Billie Eilish is also on. Yeah, Billie Eilish is also on here for What Was I Made For. That's a great song as well. But yeah, you nominated 2 of the 3 hit songs, and you left out which was like the biggest hit. So that's a little disappointing. Best original score. I'm mad about this one. I'm going to talk about it. American Fiction, Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny for John Williams, Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. Love to see Poor Things and Oppenheimer on there. Killers of the Flower Moon to me is kind of forgettable, but John Williams getting nominated for Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny is tragic. Like sometimes people get nominated just because they're a name that people recognize. Daniel Pemberton's score for Across the Spider-Verse was incredible. My favorite score of the year. And some people were saying the score for The Boy and the Heron or Saltburn, something else could have been on here. That's just embarrassing to me.
But Joe Hisagi's Boy and Heron score is an absolute snub not being on this list. I've listened to that score like 3 times all the way through. It's so good. It has so much identity, so much class. Come on, man. Indiana Jones, he wrote that theme years ago. Like, get out of here with this, you know? Whatever. I hope it's probably going to go to Oppenheimer, I think. I guess we can skip editing, right? Like, I love editing fine, but I don't know. Best sound cover, because there's some odd ones in here. Creator. Didn't expect Gareth Adams, the creator, getting a nom. Maestro, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 making the list. Oppenheimer, and then Zone of Interest. The sneaky answer for those in the know, it's Zone of Interest. It's Zone of Interest. If
absolutely.
If anything takes it, it's not Zone of Interest, it's a snub. And we'll talk about that, why that is in just a minute. But I don't know. I didn't cover anything
people
else.
Are going to watch that. People are going to watch that movie at home, and they're going to throw it on as like, oh, let's watch this as a family and be devastated. The last thing I want to talk about is best visual effects. The Creator, Godzilla -1, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, and Napoleon. Great to see Godzilla -1 on there. Godzilla is officially finally has an Oscar nomination in its 70-year history. Ashamed it's not in more places on it, honestly. Could have easily been in the Best Picture category and some other places.
Out of these, who do you think's taking it? Low-key, I think my favorite's The Creator. That's the one that stood out the most to me. They're all good.
Honestly,
they're all good, obviously, but I mean...
Well, I mean, you could reward Godzilla, or you could give it to a fan favorite like Guardians 3 or Mission Impossible. I don't think Ridley Scott's getting it this year.
No. He'll blame millennials on their phones. That's the reason the last duel didn't work. That's the reason nobody went and saw Napoleon's. Millennials on their phones. Do you want to talk about noms and highlights and snubs? I think we kind of covered them all, honestly. I think I might be ready to get to that Zone of Interest review.
Yeah, I think we covered it. Again, the big snub is Greta Gerwig and Margot Robbie not being nominated for the biggest movie of the year, and it was historic. Everyone went to see it multiple times. Broke box office records, and and Oppenheimer it helped save cinema. Oppenheimer did a lot of the same things, and it got rewarded for everything, but somehow we left off Greta Gerwig.
Yeah, it's weird. It's got a weird energy. Like there's stories of like Robbie and Gerwig like being in producing meetings, like trying to convince studios to buy into the project. And they were like, look, we really think this will be something great. Like the two of them spearheaded it. Gerwig wrote most of the script without Baumbach, I had heard, and he came in for revisions, and even he wasn't into the idea. Like this movie exists because these two women worked really hard to make it happen. And like it feels kind of weird that like they're notably not recognized here. And then like it's an honor to be nominated. There's a lot of great noms in categories. I get it. I don't know, man. Yeah, it's just weird. That's all. It's just weird. Like it just feels like the people who really were the driving force behind this project that clearly had a lot of success.
I saw a stat that only 8 women have been nominated for Best Director, and something like almost 500 men
Like
in the 96 year history. They've only ever nominated 2 women at once, and that's happened one time, which was a couple of years ago. Last year there were 0 women, so it's still got a long time to go. The directing branch of the Academy is some of the oldest people in Hollywood, and that's, I mean, a lot of this is just rewarding names, and old Hollywood. And again,
right.
Even outside of Margot Robbie and Greta Gerwig, that's like Daniel Pemberton getting snowed out for John Williams, who wrote the music for a movie that completely bombed. Like, what are we doing here?
Yes, some of us are having flashbacks to Jamie Lee Curtis winning Best Supporting Actress over Stephanie Hsu and Everything Everywhere All at Once, right? It's just like, hold on a second. Like, one of those performances was clearly more dynamic than the other, but it's fine. Oscars are their own thing. What we need to shift focus to, what we need to start talking about, is an entirely different feature. I'm so stoked to talk about this movie. Boy, this is really great stuff. I'll leave Andy to it. He's taking the summary. Andy, please take it away.
The Zone of Interest. Now, this is a movie we've been trying to see for a long time. We've heard a lot of buzz about it since the summer. Really heavy subject matter that we're going to get into, but it's definitely very important. This is directed by Jonathan Glazer, based on the novel by Martina Amis, who's a woman. The story takes place in World War II Germany, outside of the Auschwitz concentration camp, with the Höss family. Commandant Rudolf Höss, played by Christian Friedel. He's in charge of the camp, but the story is not about the camp. The story is about him and his family. His wife Hedwig, played by Sandra Hüller, who of course we saw in Anatomy of a Fall. They are trying to build this idyllic life. They have they have 4 kids. She's got this enormous garden in the background. They have a pool. They're trying to raise their family, be good mothers and fathers. And this is all happening next to a concentration camp, which sounds horrific. And it is, but at the same time, it's not, because this movie is not about the victims. It is about the people that perpetrated these atrocities. And it's about humanizing the bad guy, but not in the, oh, they're people too. It's more in the, oh, these were everyday people that carried these things out, that stood by while it happened, that were complicit, that were completely okay with what was going on. And the movie is from their perspective, and you get hints of the horrors that are going on next door, primarily through an incredible soundscape. There's a constant rumbling going on in the background of the crematoriums burning 24 hours a day. There's the sounds of the slave labor factories. There's screams, but just ever so faint. I mean, they have like small children, and like the children, they don't really hear it, or they're just kind of deaf to it. There's gunshots, again, off in the distance, and we know from history that means people are getting killed every time you see one. There is just this terrible imagery of the trains constantly arriving. And this is all against the background of this idyllic garden, this green space, the pool. They have a birthday party. They celebrate different things, all while these terrible things are going on next door. And so it's a real look at what's often been called the banality of evil, just everyday people carrying out unbelievable acts.
I think The Zone of Interest is a really important movie. One of the how do I get my thoughts together here? One of the things I thought about while I was watching this feature, amongst, the horrors of war and tragedy and violence and incredible performance and the way it's shot, is of fellow film reviewer Mark Kermode in his review of Jojo Rabbit, right? The Taika Waititi film about a young boy who is going to Nazi summer camp and learning to be a Nazi in World War II Germany, and kind of how he travels through that and ends up, not really working out. It's a bit of a comedy, and Kermode infamously really didn't like it. He really didn't like it because he thought it made light of the Nazis. It made light of the monsters. Like it treats them as if they could be somewhat redeemable or have some kind of, like lighthearted human side, because really everybody's human, and that's not the way it should be looked at. Well, Zone of Interest, I think, is a fantastic direction away from that very idea that these are people who are like capable of I don't know, love and affection, because ultimately, like, the people in the Zone of Interest kind of are. They're people just like everybody else. They live lives that they deem are normal. They have goals and aspirations, a home that they love, a family they cherish. Like, they don't want any of those things to change. They just happen to also have this horrific ideology that's been so built into who they are and what they do that they've completely given themselves and their families to it, and they're surrounded by it, by the sounds of it and the horror of it and the look and the smell and the taste and the air and the ash. It's disgusting and it's horrifying, and Glazer shoots it with this like unreal, unflinching like tension, set cameras and microphones all over the set, so the audience, our actors are acting as naturally as possible, just capturing them in their most like basic instinctual presence while they are operating as a mother and a father and employees and expectants of a concentration camp. It's really hardcore, man. It's really hardcore, and it's really great. And I feel like I'm rambling, so you should probably give me some direction. Andy, where do we start talking about this thing?
Well, it's again, there's what is the plot? What is the story? So they're raising their family, but what is kind of the catalyst is a couple of businessmen arrive and they have a meeting with the commandant, where they outline plans for what will be a crematorium. And if you don't know, and I had to do some research for this, but Rudolf Höss was kind of the mastermind of mass murder in these camps at the time. He perfected of like how do we efficiently exterminate people, and he figured out methods for that. So that's all going on in the background, but it kicks off with this this business meeting and this eventual construction of this crematorium. But again, the movie's not about the camp; it's about the family. They have struggles of raising their kids, dealing with work-life balance, their relationship, that sort of thing. I think one of the amazing thing that Glazer does is this movie it's obviously very heavy, but it's not unwatchable like you might expect, because the horrors are around the edge of what's going on. Like, we all know from history what's happening. But it's not grotesque, it's not graphic, it's all mostly done through sound. But he does really clever things. Like, near the beginning, there's a scene where they open packages and get clothes out, and you're like, oh, they must have just ordered some clothes and now they're going through them. And you slowly realize, like, these aren't clothes they've ordered, they're clothes that have come off the prisoners that have arrived on the trains, and they're stealing their belongings and taking. It's one of those, it's when it clicks, it doesn't, because it doesn't click right away. It's then shocking. And again, it's the mundanity which is carried out. It's like, oh, these are clearly other people's clothes. Let me go through them. Let me go through these pockets. Oh, there's something nice in here. Lucky us. And there's a lot of that kind of thing in the film. I don't want to get too much into that, but it's a lot of showing how these people carrying out were benefiting. And because at first I thought, well, maybe they don't know, maybe the family doesn't know, maybe the mother doesn't know, and they're just
Right.
doing what they're told. But the longer the film goes, it's very clear that they know exactly what's going on. They're complicit, and not only that, they're essentially rewarded for what's going on. He's rewarded with promotions. They're reported with this really nice living situation. They have live-in house servants, and I say that as they were obviously still slave labor, but they were house servants, and that was their job. They live an incredibly comfortable life. At one point she says, I'm people call me the queen of Auschwitz because I have this lovely garden. I raise my kid, and she gets kind of whatever she wants. They love their life here. And it just kind of shows you the cost. And throughout the whole film, there's again, there's the humming and churning of machinery. There's the gunshots in the distance. There's screams of torture, just barely audible. The children don't even hear it. Uh, it's just over their head. So it's
Sure.
so haunting,
Well, that's
the whole time.
you hit it perfect. Like the slow turn of realization for your audience is like handled so perfectly here, masterfully, even by Glazer. Like, because when the trailer does not give any of this stuff away, the trailer just shows, hey, there's a family that's living next to what looks like a concentration camp. They don't tell you what concentration camp it is. They don't tell you in what capacity this family works there. They don't tell you any of that. And as you watch the film and you start to answer these questions to yourself, only through subtext. Only through subtext. Because like you said, the violence is never shown. Only through subtext, you're told these things. These like slow turns of realization for you of what you're watching and what you're seeing and what those sounds represent is horrifying. Like it creates a pit in the bottom of your stomach. Like it is genuinely difficult to watch. And Glazer shoots this in a brilliant like match with his theme with this incredibly rigid, always on a tripod camera that is typically just placed in the scene against a wall or somewhere in a corner. Apparently, the way they rigged this up is they put a bunch of cameras in where our scenes were going to be, and then our actors just acted them out. They're fixed cameras all the time, and then they put that together in editing. So you'll have like, I don't know if anybody ever listens to the show ever played like the old Resident Evil games, but like those first couple Resident Evil titles, it was like all security cam footage for your horror game. You can't move the camera. You're locked in place. What you see in the frame is what you have to take in. It's what you can. It's the information you can perceive when the camera changes because the camera's not going to do it for you. There's no cameraman who's going to steady cam our characters and follow them. There's nobody's going to dolly along. It's nearly all going to be fixed. And while you're looking for our characters and information, and hey, that helper over there looks like she has a black eye. What's that guy about? Or hey, that guy looks like he's wearing a prison jumpsuit. You're also seeing things like just over the top of the garden wall, the tops of factory buildings. Yeah, and you're hearing like the steam. You're seeing the steam of an engine, of a train engine, roaring by on a track and coming to a stop. And us, the adults in the room, know what those things mean. You can put it together. Like it's very obvious. But if you showed this movie to like a 5-year-old, they would just be super bored. They wouldn't know any of it, like, and they wouldn't see it, and they're never going to see anything in here that's rated R, and they're not going to see anything that like chills them to their core because they don't have any of that context. As an adult who knows what you're watching, chilling, and it truly creates a connection between the screen and the audience that like few films do. Glazer has managed to like cobble something together here that transcends language. It's all in German, doesn't matter, like transcends time, like, and truly has a message that matters. Like, really incredible work. Really incredible work, dude. Like, I wish we'd seen this movie earlier in the year. I wish we'd seen it before our top 10 list. Andy, what else? What else do we say without giving stuff away?
Yeah. So this would have been This would have been my number one movie had I gotten to see it in time. Yes, it's been described kind of as Big Brother. It's shot in that reality TV way, in the house at least, where the cameras are just set up and the actors just do the scene. And it also allowed for a lot of improvisation. There's a lot of improv throughout a lot of the different scenes because they wanted a real natural feel. And also, as heavy as this movie is, it's PG-13. Like, that's how you know it's not like something, there's not tons of violence or anything like that. But it's still incredible in its messaging. There's a really interesting subplot that we see actually shot in kind of a negative film negative.
I think it's
where
infrared.
There's a girl.
Yeah.
Infrared. Yeah. There's a girl in town, a Polish girl who rides her bike close to the concentration camp, kind of where the prisoners work the fields, and she goes and hides food. She takes like bags of apples and she goes and hides it in the hillside, or she hides it underneath work equipment. And so it's like the one hint of resistance that's going on. It's just this innocent girl who's based on a real person who was actually there. And I read as much as like that is actually that woman's bike in the film, like it's her original bike from then. So you do have like these hints of of resistance, but it's so small and so almost futile. Um, but it's still, acts of defiance in the face of these horrors.
Andy's mentioned it a couple times already, but just to kind of wrap up my thoughts before recommendations, I want to reiterate this movie should win Best Sound. It is like, not only are bits of it experimental in how sound is presented, including an overture at the open, which is nuts.
Yeah.
But like the way sound is used to present a subtext that you aren't seeing is really, really incredible. In fact, I was looking at IMDb trivia earlier. Apparently, their composer had composed a lot more music for it, and in an early edit, it had way more music, and they dialed it all back in favor of what's here. It's very intentional. It's very designed. It's wildly effective. Like, I don't know, man. Like, there's some good stuff for Best Sound, but I don't think anybody beats what's happening here. This is genuinely creative in a way that I didn't expect, as well as the whole feature. Like, it's really good. Andy had a great tweet about it just the other day. Follow probably at Dr. Draper. I think that's your handle. I'm not even sure. We should probably say our handles at some point. Yeah, you tweeted. You said it might be the most important Holocaust movie since Schindler's List, and I think you're right. It's super important, dude. Zone of Interest is really important. It bums me out. A24 can't get it in front of people. I get it's really specific, but boy, like you would think this would be in more places. It's really hard to find.
The Oscar noms will definitely help with that, and it'll be more widely seen. But yeah, Schindler's List is also a very hard watch, and that movie didn't shy away from the very graphic violence and torture and torment. This is kind of takes the opposite of approach, where we've seen all that, we know all that. Let's look at the people responsible. It's incredible. Like, I've never seen anything like this, and I'd heard amazing things that it was just something else, and that it'll change you.
Yeah. The Zone of Interest is incredible. Andy, recommendations?
I'm ready.
Oh, would you recommend The Zone of Interest?
I would. I feel this is one of those movies like 12 Years a Slave or Schindler's List, where everyone should see this movie. You need to see this. It's an education. Again, it's heavy subject matter, but it's not impossible. It's not too hard to sit through. It's PG-13, so it is digestible, I think, by most audiences. But it's so haunting, and it's such an incredible look at just how everyday people can carry out things like this. Like, these weren't boogeymen and monsters. They were husbands and wives and mothers and children and siblings. And again, it's not just about the physical tortures. It's about the idealism, and these people are believers. They believe that what is happening, what they're doing is right, is the right thing.
Yeah.
So highly recommend.
Yeah, Andy's right. It is a wildly important feature. Bold Cinema fans, you are going to eat so good when you go see Zone of Interest. It is so different and thoughtful and interesting. I don't think it'll play the same at home. Go see it in a theater. I'll probably go see it again at some point, if not soon, like when they start doing, AMC, like Oscar Roundup Week, when they like Fathom Events runs all the Oscar movies again. Like, I might try to go sneak it in on a big screen somewhere. Dude, Zone of Interest is so good. It's so good. It's top 10 material. It's excellent. Like I said, it's nominated for Oscars, and it may earn them. And that's our show. God, what an episode. Little bit lopsided, but things about adaptation, right? Zone of Interest is adapted from a book. And I heard that it was a pretty different book, by the way. I think Jonathan Glazer went the way of like Kubrick and Stephen King making The Shining. It was like, okay, I see the book, I'm making it this way, and I think it might be better for it. Mean Girls, meanwhile, adapted from adapted. What a strange time at the movies. Andy, what are we watching next week?
So there are no big releases in theaters next week, but we are gonna be taking a look at Society of the Snow, which is a drama on Netflix about the Chilean rugby team that crashed over the Andes in the 70s and had to resort to cannibalism in order to survive. This movie was made in 1994, or a version of this movie was made in 1994 with Ethan Hawke, called Alive. This version is by J.A. Bayona and is in Spanish. Excited to see that. And then I think we might take a look at Naiad or one of these other Oscar nominees. There's a lot out. so it might be a double streaming week. Naiad is just, all I know is that Jodie Foster and Annette Bening are in it, and it's a swimming drama. Annette Bening is a swimmer. Jodie Foster's the coach. That's kind of all I know about that. And Zach, tell us about Strawberry Mansion.
Yeah, Strawberry Mansion. So, Strawberry Mansion is a mini review I want to do next week. It's on Amazon Prime. You can go check it out now. Andy and I saw a trailer for it in 2021 when it came out. It is about it's a science fiction, mega low budget indie, a la Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's about a tax auditor, a dream tax auditor, a lonely man who travels around the country to meet with clients and audit their dreams as they've been recorded on these like tape devices, and tax things in them as corporations of the future have learned to tax people and make money off of things. And he goes and meets this old woman who lives in this wonderfully red mansion, discovers she has thousands of tapes, and as he starts to kind of dig into those and look at her dreams through these very lo-fi, goofy helmet thing he puts on and goofy edits, you end up like kind of departing to this magical world of like the real and the unreal and dreamlike romanticism. Kind of goofy. I'll have to send Andy the trailer. It sounds like a weird flick, but I'm excited to talk about it. Honestly, I took the time. I think it's worth talking about. I think there's something neat there. It's got a bit of heart to it. So look forward to that next week. But in between now and then, if you enjoyed the show today, Off Script episode 240, Mean Girls, and boy, I've done too much podcasting.
The zone of interest.
Zone of interest. The best thing you can do to support us and help me get my memory right is subscribe to Off Script Film Review wherever you are listening and or watching right now. If you're watching on YouTube, we got individual reviews coming out, custom things, all kinds of things happen on the YouTube page. Subscribe here and go check us out over on YouTube if you haven't. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, all the usual social media stuff. We're on iTunes and Spotify, iHeartMedia, Google Play, anywhere you find your audio podcast. You might be listening to us there right now, and if you are, hit that sub button for us. Does huge things for us. You have no idea how big of a change that makes in the podcast world. And if you could swing it, I mean, if you really want to go for the extra credit, you could leave a little rating and review, a little 5 stars, and a little something about how much you like the show, how great you think Andy's opinions are, what you think of our Oscar noms. I don't know. You could leave anything in there, and the great algorithm in the sky will turn it into something that will help us make more episodes of Off Script. But anyway, the point is, we like movies, we like watching them, and we want to keep talking about them. So please do us a solid, leave a rating and review where you can, or subscribe, or whatever. Share with your friends, share with somebody. And you can always find us at offscriptfilmreview.com, and you can leave us correspondence via email at mail@offscriptfilmreview.com. From all of us at Off Script, the home of bold cinema, I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Thanks for watching.